YouTube, what's happening? It's Tuesday, June 25th. We got a full slate of baseball to talk about today, but first, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, because there's been an update now. I have a betting recap screen we can go through. You can see here, yesterday was red. It's okay. The stats are the stats. We're going to have red days. The best bettors are like 56, 57%. If anyone out there's claiming they're like 80% on the year in baseball betting, one, they're liars, and two, stop paying for their picks. So anyways, you got green. That's the goal. We want to slowly build the bankroll over every single day, week, whatever. You're going to have bumps in there. It's like the stock market. The stocks don't go up every day. They go up and down, but over the long picture, they go up. So that's what we want to see here. We treat this like our stock portfolio. So as you can see, when I did the season one, I was a little shocked. I didn't realize I was doing that well. So great season start so far, because it's only June. We're in the dog days now. There's no more basketball. There's no more hockey. They're gone. So dog days, baseball is on center stage. A lot of people said today is the start of baseball season because of that. So, well, they need to catch up because we've been doing this for a while. So yesterday, 3 and 4, you can see the wins and losses. The losses were hilarious because since he hit the over by themselves, Lance Lynn begrudgingly had a great game yesterday. Helped me lose the bet. Thanks, bruh. Crochet only has 6 strikeouts. Oakland, LA, Nerfy was hilarious because the Oakland pitcher was literally assaulting the Angels batters with the baseball before he gave up the 2-run bomb in the first. It was hilarious. I laughed, I turned it off and went to bed. So that's how it went. So also, while we're talking, if you're new here, because I know I got a lot of subs all of a sudden, I didn't expect to grow this fast, but hey, if you're here, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching all this. But this is what we do here. If you come here for picks, I don't do that. I don't give out picks. I give out information. I give out data. I give out trends and probability and analysis on those. At the end of it, of each game, I will say, I'm taking this. If you're just taking what I'm taking, don't do that. You need to do your own research and do your own, analysis and look and see what stats you like. Look at other people that give out stats. There's people in the comments that give out stats. Those people are great because they have points of view that I don't see. I look at stats trends recently. Most people don't do that. We work together as a team because, again, the goal is to be green in the long term. So we all need to work together here. So all that being said, I know I rambled a little bit. We got 15 games. Let's go ahead and jump into that first one right now. All right, before we get to the first one, you can see the hands are actually filled out here. LHP and RHP will show up for the right pitcher. It'll be correct. I tested it. I made sure it works great. Small baby steps we're making around here to getting a full sheet that actually breaks down hand in his first pitcher. Everyone wants to see it, and everyone sees the stat, but they always see the same thing. It's for the whole season. I don't care what you did in April. That doesn't matter. I'm a trend better. How have you been doing the last 3 games, the last 7 games? I want to know those stats. And who was that pitcher in those trends? Was it somebody who's a beast or was it somebody garbage? I need to know these things, and nowhere has that. So I have to make that stat. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but hey, baby steps are baby steps, right? So we move on. Cleveland, 6-game winning streak. Baltimore, 4-game losing streak. Allen, lefty, with his 5-2-3 against Irvin, lefty, and his 3-4-5. Nerfy, both red. Not really going to look at that with these 2 pitchers. Looking at the odds, we see Baltimore is pretty decently favored at home in this one. 9.5s across the board with the totals. Looking at the bats, we see Cleveland has a pretty heavy advantage here based on the stats here. 5 runs a game their last 3 for 10th. Meanwhile, Baltimore fell off a cliff, 1.3 for 28th. Batting average 284 for Cleveland. They're 8th in the last 3. Meanwhile, Baltimore 167 for 26. There are 4 teams worse than that. That's wild to see. And strikeouts 8.3 to 9.3. Again, slight advantage Cleveland. Pop over to pitching. Allen's going out there with a 5.23 to 1.48. You can see outside of Colorado in the last 5-6 games, he's gave up 3 runs a couple times, 2, a 1. Even had a nice goose egg against Minnesota and Chicago. So not the best numbers, but not bad numbers. Better than what his season stats we're talking about. See, this is what I'm talking about. You see this, and he's like, oh, he's garbage. He ain't that good. Show me. Outside of Colorado, he's been pretty good. So I look at trends. I want to see what you've done recently. It's like that Eddie Murray. What have you done for me lately? See, I need to see what you've done lately. So Irvin, on the other hand, you see his stats, 3.45, 1.25. It's like, okay, his numbers are better. Look at his recent stats. 5, 3, 2, 2. He had the gem against Boston. I give him credit. 3. He's got good stats. His stats are not as good as his numbers are saying because he's starting to trend worse in June. But to me, looking at initially, you see the first thing on here, you see both pitchers have you know, you have a lean towards Irvin based on the pitching. But when you dig deeper in the numbers, to me, they're about equal. They both stand out equally. So with that being said, with the batting numbers being like this and the odds being like this, I'm going to take Cleveland money line. I got to do it because I'm getting plus money. I like to ride streaks, and as you can see, Cleveland's on a winning streak. Baltimore's on a losing streak. Baseball players are the streakiest athletes in any sport you can find because they play every single day. They don't have a week to practice and fix their errors like in football. They don't have shoot-arounds in basketball. They have to play, sleep, travel, play. They don't get time off to really work on their craft. So that's why trends are so important in baseball. So we're going to rock with Cleveland money line and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Philly and Detroit. Philly's on a 3-game winning streak. We got Suarez 10-1 with a 1.75 ERA up against Skubal 8-3 with a 2.5 ERA. Absolute beast of a pitching matchup. Murphy's 43%. Typically, I'd say no, but when you have two beast pitchers, I like to look at the offense to see how they're doing. If the offenses are miserable, yeah, we'll rock with Murphy. But we got the pitching. Let's see if we get the batting. But first, let's look at odds. Philly is slightly favored on the road. It's 7.5 totals across the board. Now batting, Murphy's out the window. Can't do it. Philly's bats are too hot right now to do a Murphy. And I believe Skubal struggling in his last couple of starts, so we have to look at that too. So Philly, 8 runs a game in the last 3 for second in the majors. They're batting .351 in the last 3 games, including the last game was .349. Batting amazing. Even though they almost set a record with 17 strikeouts last night, they were swinging and missing everything. But when they were hitting, they were scoring. So I mean, take what you get. So you're good with the bad, right? Detroit, 4.3 runs a game for 16th, batting .272 in their last 3 for 11th. So not bad numbers, middle of the road, but not Philly numbers, and 9.3 strikeouts. So we have 2 teams that are middle of the road strikeouts that for some reason Philly had a day of just missing everything. So I feel Philly has the big advantage when it comes to offense in this one. Looking at the pitching, we start with Skubal. 2.5 with a .97 whip. You can see, yeah, his last couple of games, he's gotten a little roughed up. 4 runs for him before that. He did 4 against KC, nothing against Pitt. Texas won, Milwaukee won, Houston, Atlanta. That's not, those numbers aren't looking too good here recently, are they? Looking over at Suarez, you can see his game log 1.75 with a .89. His numbers have been outside of the Colorado game he had 4. 1-0 for 2 innings, 2-1-1. He's pitching much better. So I would say at this point in the season, Suarez has the advantage over Skubal when it comes to pitching. You mix that with the batting of Philly having their bats be absolutely on fire and the odds of them slightly being favored. I'm going to take Philly, the money line for this one. I'm not going to touch a run line. I'm not going to touch a total. We're going to take just Philly and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Seattle and Tampa Bay. Tampa's on a 2-game winning streak. Seattle's on a 2-game losing streak. Castillo with a 6-8 record going up with a 3.42 up against Tampa, and Lotto with a 2.5 with a 3.87. Murphy, 54.8. I'm not going to do the Murphy of these pitchers. Murphy's a pass. Murphy's almost always a pass unless something just really stands out with the Murphy. Looking at the odds, we see Seattle slightly favored on the road. Totals are 7.5 across the board. Bats, Seattle, 5.3 runs their last 3 for 8th. Tampa, 3.3 for 20, so we have advantage Seattle. Both teams right in the middle of the road when it comes to batting average. Last 3, 238 versus 250, so they're middle of the pack. Even the last game, Seattle batted a smooth 100 for worst in the majors. Yeah, it happens. Some days you're off. Some days you're off. And strikeouts, they went back to their normal. They struck out 14 times in their last game. Average 10.3 for 24. Tampa, 10.3, 11 their last game. So we got 2 decently high strikeout guys here, teams here. So still, Seattle has the advantage offensively. Let's look at the pitching. Castillo's going out there, and he has not had the best June of all. 8 for 5 against Cleveland. 4 for 2 is not bad against Texas, but then 6 for 5 against KC. 2-hit gem against the Angels of all teams. And then 2. You can see he gave 2 every game. So we know he's going to give at least 2 runs. Last 2 out of 3 he's given up 5 runs. So he's prone to give up runs. Light on the other hand, 4-2, 1-3-8. You can see has not faced Seattle. Same with Castillo. You can see he hasn't faced Tampa Bay recently either. 4-2 with a 1-3-8. 8 for 6, 3-3, 2-3-2. He gives up runs too. So we got 2 pitchers that are prone to give up at least 2-3 runs a game. And we got bats here that are, Seattle's pretty hot, but they're trending down. Tampa's trending up a little bit here recently. They're middle of the road. So we got 2 of those. I'm going to take something Yeah, we got 7.5 on the board. I'm going to take the over in this game. 7.5's across the board. There's better juice out there, plenty of places. So over in this one, we're not going to take a side. I don't trust either of these pitchers or these bats. So we'll take the over 7.5 and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Toronto and Boston. Toronto's on a 7-game losing streak. Boston's on a 3-game winning streak. Gossman 5-6, 4.24 up against Bello 7-4 with a 4.83. Murphy 55.2, not worth looking at, especially with these pitchers. Looking at the odds, we see that Boston is slightly favored at home. 8.5 nines are on the board for the total. Looking at the bats, we see that they're both trending upward. That's the first thing I see from the trend lines. And Toronto, last 3 games, got 4.7 runs, including 6 yesterday. 6 runs per game for Boston for third best in the majors, including 7 yesterday. Batting averages also going up. 227 for Toronto is now 19th, albeit slightly higher than what it was. Even though they were 265 yesterday. 286 for Boston for 7th. They were 324 yesterday. So they're still hovering top 10. Toronto's about 20. So we have advantage Boston when it comes to the offense, obviously. And you see strikeouts. Boston's number 1, only striking out 4 times yesterday. 6.3 the last 3 for third. Toronto, middle of the road at 16th. Nothing to be mad at. Middle of the road is where you want to be. If you don't want to be at the bottom. So looking at the pitching, Gossman going out. He faced Boston last outing, gave up 6, 5, 4, 2 rocks, 3 walks, 2 and 4 strikeouts. So you can see he didn't have the best game. And before that, 3 had a 5-hit gem against Oakland, but it was at Oakland. Oakland, what was this, 2 weeks ago, was not doing well. So, and then 6 for 6 against Baltimore, not good numbers. Bello, on the other hand, he also faced Toronto last time. 7 hits, 2 earned, only 2 walks, no home runs. New York got him for 4. White Sox got him 9 for 5, though. That was a strange one. And Detroit 8 for 4. So he's not had a good June. His best game was against Toronto last week. When he played. For that 3, 3, 5, you just see he gives up runs. He's going to give up a couple runs a game, 2 or 3 runs. So in this one, I would say the pitching matchup leans Toronto in this one because of Gossman, because of this, because you can see he has games where he pitches great. Bello, his best game is what? His last game against Toronto, 7-2, or maybe down here Washington, start of May. That's not good. So Gossman has the advantage. Boston has the advantage when it comes to the bats. We look at the odds, we see why it's almost pick 'em. I can't touch a side in this one. Over 8.5 is looking pretty nice because both pitchers give up runs, both bats are trending up. So I will take over 8.5 in this one and move on to the next game. All right, next up we got Pittsburgh and Cincy. Pittsburgh's on a 2-game losing streak. Keller 8-4 with a 3.11, going up against Green 5-2 with a 3.35. You can see who leans what and which has the advantage. Murphy 54 with these pitchers right now and these offenses. That's a pass for me. Looking at the odds, we see that Cincy is a slight favorite at home, 8.5 across the board, no matter where you look. For the bats, Cincy has the advantage. 6 runs their last 3 versus Pittsburgh's 3.3 for 20th, but Pittsburgh is trending up. They went from almost at last to 20th. Hey, improvement. We take that. Cincy, 3rd. They were almost in the 20th range. Now they're in the top 3. So, hey, trend lines through the roof for both teams. Good job. 189 batting average for Pittsburgh was 23rd. Cincy 303 for 5th in the last 3. And you can see the strikeouts. Nothing really stands out in the strikeout world. So Cincy has an advantage here recently with their offense. Looking at the pitching, Hunter Green 335 to 112. His last game though at Pittsburgh 6.1, only 2-hit gem. He pitched amazing. Struck out 9. Beautiful game. This tells me to take Cincy right all day to the bank. Not so fast, my friend. Mitch Keller also had him a game against Cincy. 7 innings, 2 hit, 2 walks, 7 strikeout. He had a gem. This was a pitching battle last week when they faced each other. So this game, with these 2 pitchers going back out there with these same offenses again, the batting, you can see, yes, Cincy has an advantage, but both pitching matchups were just beautiful last time. I can't literally take a side. I don't know who to take. I don't want Zach a total either. So to me, based on the odds and the batting and the 2 pitchers, this game's going to be a pass for me. I'm moving on to the next one. Next up, we got the Subway Series, Yankees and Mets. Yankees have lost 1, Mets have won 1. Cole's going out there in his second game with a 4.5 ERA. Peterson, 22 innings, 3.97 ERA. Murphy, 49.1. Not really going to look at it with these 2 teams currently. Looking at the odds, we see that the Yankees are pretty decently favored on the road. 8.5 over under across the board. Looking at the bats, we see the Mets have the advantage with the bats. They're 5.7 their last three versus Yankees at 3.3. That's an advantage in the runs. Batting average is 211 versus 283. Advantage the Mets on that one. And then the strikeouts 9 versus 10. Nothing really stands out in the strikeout world. So we see the Mets have the advantage when it comes to swinging the bats. They're scoring more runs. They have a higher batting average. Everything points to them. Pitching. Cole's going out there, 1 game, 4 innings, not bad, but it's his first game of the year. What can you do? Dude won the Cy Young last year for a reason. He's going to have to get back into his mid-season form. So 3 hits over 4 innings against Baltimore is not a bad game. This is not bad for your first start. Peterson's going out there. He's only pitched 4 games, and you can see Dudes gives up about two plus runs a game. That's what you get with him. When you have this setup here where you have the pitching matchup clearly favors the Yankees because we know Cole has the advantage. He won the Cy Young last year. Dude's a beast. He just got to get back in form. Peterson's only pitched 4 games. You can see his stats here. I don't expect him to pitch a gem. So that tells me that the Yankees have the pitching advantage. We see that the Mets have the batting advantage recently with the runs and the averages. You put them together, I can't pick a side. I can't even pick a total. To me, this entire game is going to be a pass. Let's move on to the next game. Next up, we got Atlanta and St. Louis. Atlanta's on a 1-game losing streak. St. Louis 4-game winning streak. Lopez 5-2 with a 1.57 ERA. Going up against Gibson, 5-2 with a 3.44. Advantage is lean Lopez based on the season stats. Nerfy is orange, 63.2%. We will look at a Nerfy in this one to see how we're doing. Looking at the odds, we see that Atlanta is slightly favored on the road. 8.5s across the board with some 8s out there as well. Batting, we see that Atlanta 24th at 3 runs a game in the last 3. St. Louis 6 runs a game for 3rd. 172 is what Atlanta is batting in the last 3. St. Louis is batting 343. So St. Louis's offense is much better than Atlanta currently. And on strikeouts, 10.3 versus 9. They're both not doing so well on strikeouts. So that being said, we see Atlanta's offense is struggling. St. Louis offense is hot. So normally I wouldn't take a Nerfy in that one, but we see that Lopez is a beast. Let's just be honest. He's 7-0, 2-0, 6-2, 4-1. He's been great. He has not faced St. Louis, but only giving up 2 over 6 to Baltimore is pretty impressive. 7-0 against Detroit. These numbers are good. Gibson, on the other hand, he doesn't have a big task to worry about. He's facing the Braves, who you see are struggling offensively, but he had a gem against the Cubs, 7 for 2 and nothing else. He have a couple of these. So with this being said, I'm going to gamble a little bit. I like these matchups. I like St. Louis's offense being hot against somebody like Lopez because Lopez is shutting teams down. And we get to see Atlanta's offense is poor against Gibson, who has potential to shut teams down. I'm going to take the Nerfy in this one. We're going to rock with that one. Now, when it comes to the rest of the games, we see with St. Louis having such a big advantage offensively and pitching, I believe, goes to Atlanta. Let's be honest here, because Lopez's numbers are just nasty. Gibson's numbers aren't bad. I mean, outside of his Boston game, 5-0, 2-1, 5-3, 8-3. These are serviceable numbers. These are even good numbers, but they're not Lopez numbers. So Atlanta has the advantage in pitching. St. Louis has the advantage in offense. The odds are almost a pick 'em. The over/under is 8.5. I can't do anything there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to sit back, root for the 6 simple outs, and take the Nerfy and move on to the next game. Next up, Dodgers, White Sox. Dodgers have won 2. White Sox have lost 2. Miller 1-1 with a 6 ERA given. It's only been 18 innings. Up against Flexen 2-6, 5.03 ERA. Nerfy 57. Not touching it with these pitchers. Looking at the odds, you see Dodgers are massive favorites on the road, -220 plus. And we see the totals 9, 9.5. You pick your poison out there. Looking at the bats, I'm not seeing why they're such a massive favorite because both teams' trend lines are diving into the dirt. Dodgers 4 runs a game in their last 3. Chicago 2.3 runs a game in their last 3. 18th and 25th. Yes, it is a slight advantage for the Dodgers. Batting average 232 versus 214. They're about the same team batting. And strikeouts 9, 16, 7.7, 8.7. Not much of a difference, but slight advantage Dodgers. So Dodgers do have a slight advantage offensively, but albeit slight. Looking at the pitching, Flexen 5.03 with a 1.39, but he had a good game against Houston, 5-1. He got 9 hits and 4 earned against Arizona, 2-2 over 5 for Boston, 3-1 against the Cubs. Not bad starts in June. Outside of the one Arizona game, these are pretty good starts. This is what you want out of him. And before that, 4-2 and 5-4. So you can see he hasn't faced the Dodgers, but he's had one bad game in his last 6 starts. That's impressive. Looking at Miller, you can see his last game was Colorado. Dude gave up a lot. 6 for 5, not a good game. 2 games before that, 4 for 5 against the Cubs, 5 for 2 against the Twins. His last good game was against St. Louis, and that was back in March. We don't care about that far back. We want, and you can see these were April. So he's only had one real game in the last 2 months. And this was June 19th, 6-5, given it was at Colorado. Any games at Colorado, you got to take with a grain of salt. So we see that it's hard to tell with him. We really need to see how he's going to do back in his next game. So I would say Flexen has the advantage in pitching in this one. We see that the Dodgers have a slight advantage in batting in this one. And as I said in the other games, if one side has the advantage in pitching and one has the advantage in batting, they cancel each other out. There's no strikeout props to take in this one. There's no Nerfy to take in this one. This entire game's a pass. I would not be surprised at all if Chicago won this game. Let me just say that, because anytime you get odds like this and we have a better pitcher on one side, yeah, I would not be surprised at all if the White Sox pull off an upset today. So, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to pass and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Colorado and Houston. Colorado 1-game losing streak. Houston 5-game winning streak. Gomber 1-4 with a 4.36 up against Brown 4-5 with a 4.72. Nerfy 47, not worth looking at, especially with these pitchers. Looking at the odds, we see Houston is a massive favorite at home, almost 265, 270, 275. Wow, crazy. Yeah, the total's 8.5 over here. Looking at the bats, we see why Houston's bats are en fuego. Colorado 4.7 in their last 3 for 13th. Houston 9 first. Colorado 275 batting 10th. That's cute. Houston 340 third. Yeah, Houston's bats are on fire. Colorado's not bad. Let's be honest. 13th and 10th in runs and bat average. That's average and better than average. Houston first and third. No, way big advantage Houston. And on strikeouts, Colorado swinging at everything. 11.7 in their last 3 for 29. Struck out 13 times in their last game. Houston, more discipline. Only 6.7 for 5th. Only 5 strikeouts their last game. So Houston has all the advantages when it comes to batting. Looking at pitching, Hunter Brown's going out there. Dude's been balling out in the month of June. The last 3 games, 7-1 against the White Sox. 7 innings of 5-hit gem against Detroit. 2-hit gem against the Angels. He gave up 3 to Minnesota, but outside of that, his last 3 games have been just great. Has not faced Colorado, as you see. Prepare yourself before I show the screen. I don't want to jump scare you, but I'm going to Gomber. All right, you ready? You ready? Prepared? Okay, here we go. Gomber, last few games have been ugly. 5 for 4 against the Dodgers, 11-8 against Minnesota, 6 for 4 against St. Louis, 5 for 3. Dude, I think he's getting paid to give up runs. I don't know. Man, dude is just June is not his month. He needs to go back to May. That's where he needs to go, because he was doing good in May. Look at his May numbers. May was his month. I think maybe it got too hot for him. I don't know. But dude has been struggling in the month of June. He needs July to get here. So clearly Houston has the advantage in pitching. Clearly Houston has the advantage in offense. And if you want to pay for it, go for it. Because there's a theory that, oh, the money line's too high, I'm not going to bet that. That always has perplexed me, because if I put 1 unit on minus 260 or 270 or what have you, I'm going to get back, what, 0.35 units? I'm sorry, is profit still profit? Because that is what I hear. I hear 0.35 units of profit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Houston on the money line. I'm also going to take Houston on the run line in this one, because we got 1.5. It's almost a pick 'em. Yeah, I'm going to take, Houston run line, Houston money line, and we're going to move on to the next game. Next up, we got Miami and Kansas City. Miami 1-game losing streak, Kansas City 1-game winning streak. Chirinos going out there in his second game, 3.6 ERA. Lugo 10-2 with a 2.5 ERA. For the season, Lugo clearly takes the cake in this one. 53.8 Nerfy in this one. Let's look at the odds. We see KC is pretty heavy favored, minus 200. 9.5 is your totals across the board. Looking at the bats, we see the bats are not good. 2.3 for Miami for 25th, 1.3 for KC for 28th. Bats are both terrible. Miami is 165 in their last 3 for 27th. KC 128 for 30th. This is almost as bad as the Angels and Oakland's numbers from yesterday. That was scary. This is pretty. I'm getting chills, little goosebumps looking at this. You can see the bats are not hot. They're cold. And you would think it's winter around here. Put them in my drink, make it nice and cold. 10.7 strikeouts for Miami for 27th. KC only 6.3. So there's a bright spot. They're out there. KC is not striking out. They just can't do anything else. Miami is striking out a lot. They had 15 strikeouts in their last game. So to me, I mean, technically Miami has an advantage. If you're 3 spots better than the worst place, then I guess you do have an advantage. But yeah, not much of one. So in their last game, I will say KC got 4 runs. Miami had 1. So the trend line went boop, but yeah, look at the boop. They're still batting 207. If your trend line goes up from 207 because you were batting 128 before the last 3, that's not good either. So both offenses terrible. Pitching, Lugo, recently, June hasn't been his month. He 6 for 5, 4, 2, 2. He's getting better. He's getting better. We see that. So he has not faced Miami recently, so that doesn't stand out there. Looking at this guy, 5 innings, 8 hits, 2 earned in his only game, so we don't even know much about him. But we see that the offenses are both terrible right now. We see that Lugo has stats. We see what he can do. Part of me wants to take the nervy just because, just like yesterday, same with the Oakland LA game, I want to have some fun. I see that the stats are this bad. Both teams are terrible. We know Lugo's good. Hey, and let's be honest, the one game with Junos only gave up 8 hits and 2 earned over 5. It was St. Louis. Not bad, not bad. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to gamble a little bit. I'm going to have some fun out here. I'm going to take the nerfy in this one just because we're fading how poor the offenses are in this one. So we'll take the nerfy. We won't take anything else. We'll move on to the next game. Next up, we got Texas and Milwaukee. I know a lot of you were on Texas yesterday. I think I saw 3 or 4 comments of people said they were taking Texas. I almost held that, but I just didn't. I'm glad I didn't. So, but there was others I should have tailed that one too. There was a parlay that hit. Then there was a couple other straight bets. It was, yeah. So, but Texas seemed to be the biggest bad beat of the day for everybody. So today we have Texas 1-game losing streak, Milwaukee 2-game winning streak. Haney left-hander, 72 innings with a 4.21 against Wilson, 4-3 with a 4.24. Nerfy 47.7. Got to look at the matchups, look at the odds. We see it's Milwaukee slightly favored at home. We got 8.5s to 9s on the board for the totals. Bats, we see 4.3 in their last 3 for 16th for Texas. Meanwhile, Milwaukee's 5.3 for 8th. Batting average is 240 versus 311. Big advantage for Milwaukee, even though Texas is middle of the road. Milwaukee being 4th is pretty hot. 7.3 for 7.7. Both teams aren't striking out that much. So we see Milwaukee has slight advantages in both runs and batting averages. Looking at the pitchers, Wilson's going out there with a 4.24. The 1.29 has not faced Texas recently, but probably should face Texas because he is giving up runs. 7 for 5. He pitched good against Cincy, 3 in 5 innings, 6 for 7, 6 for 3, 6 for 3, 6 for 2. He's going to give up some runs. That's just what he does. Looking at his counterpart, Haney, 4.21 with a 1.29. 3, 3, 3, 3, couple zeros. Dude was feeling him, and all of a sudden, back to his 3s. But you can see he has also not faced Milwaukee, but we have 2 pitchers that are prone to give up runs. We have 2 offenses. One's pretty hot, one's middle of the road, and we got a total of 8.5 and 9. This one, I think I am going to take the over in this one. We have 8.5s on the board. I'll take the over 8.5 because we are going to fade the fact that both pitchers are prone to give up some runs, especially Wilson here recently. I can't take Milwaukee on the money line. They are favored, but Wilson's not doing that good. But I will take the over 8.5, and we will move on to the next one. Next up, Oakland and LA. Oakland's lost 3, Angels 1-1. Spence 4-3 with a 3.86 up against Anderson 6-7 with a 2.48. Murphy, still laughing about what happened last night's game, 59.1. Looking at the odds, we see the Angels are slightly favored at home. Totals 8.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, they're not as ugly as they were yesterday, but that's because the Angels actually got some runs yesterday in the 5-1 game. Oakland is getting 1 run a game with their last 3 for 30th. There's only 30 teams in baseball, so you can't be much worse. They got 1 run yesterday. They're batting 143 for 29th, and they're striking out 11.7 over the last 3. So Oakland's being Oakland, just doing what Oakland does, Oakland things. Angels 3.3 runs in the last three for 20th. They got 5 runs yesterday. That's a little bit of a spark. Okay. They're still batting 161. Yesterday, they got 5 runs, but they batted 267. So it's not like they broke out, massively breaking out. But hey, you're doing a little bit better. We'll see if you can do that again. 28th in batting average. So we got the 2 of the bottom 3 worst batting average teams going up against each other. It's not as bad as yesterday, but we do need to look at pitching. So let's pop over to pitching. Anderson's going out 7 innings. He has not faced Oakland recently. 1-1. 7 for 4 against Houston, 5 for 1 against San Diego, 4 for 1, 4 for 1. He's a good pitcher. He has great numbers. Spence, on the other hand, you can see he's going to give up a couple. So 9-4 against Minnesota, 9-4 Seattle, 6-2 against KC, 5-2 Toronto. Gem against Tampa Bay with 1 hit randomly. So you can see he's going to give probably a couple runs. We have both teams still struggling to hit the ball, but we have pretty good pitching matchups here. So Anderson clearly is the better pitcher of the 2. Angels have a slightly better offense, we're going to say. We'll say slightly, just because they have 3.3 runs instead of 1. So when it comes to the odds, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna have fun with this one. We're gonna take the Nerfy again. We're gonna rock with. This is my 3rd Nerfy today. How about that? We're gonna take the Nerfy. We're gonna take the Angels money line because we're gonna ride Mr. Anderson. We're gonna take his numbers and we're gonna rock with that money line. And I think we're gonna take the under as well because the under is 8.5. How are these teams gonna get 9 runs? Show me how they get 9 runs. I ain't buying it. So I'm taking all 3 of those bets in this one, and we'll move on to the next one. Next up, we have Minnesota on a 2-game winning streak and Arizona on a 2-game losing streak. Ryan 5-5 with a 3.23 up against Fault with a 3.6 with a 4.37. Nerfy 44.1. Yurfy, no, not good enough for this one. Looking at the odds, we see Minnesota as a slight favor on the road. Totals are 7.5, 8s on the board. Look at the bats. We see Minnesota has a massive advantage with the bats. 6 runs per third over the last 3 versus 2.3 for 25th for Arizona. Big advantage, Minnesota. Minnesota's batting 296 in their last 3. Meanwhile, Arizona's batting 181. Again, big advantage, Minnesota. And 6 versus 7.3 on strikeouts. We see no real advantage there. So we have Minnesota in their last 3 games. Now, their last game, they did only get 3 runs and batted 200, but I need to see more than 1 game to see if a trend starts. So far, they're still top 6 and top 3 in their categories, and Arizona's still struggling over on their side. Pitching, Joe Ryan's going out there, 313 with a .96. He's only had 1 bad start in his last 6, and that was against Houston, 8 for 5. 2 for 2, 3 for 2, 6 for 1. Dude's going to pitch 7 innings, probably 7 innings, and pitch pretty well, it looks like. Brandon here, 4.37, 1.18. He's had more not good starts. 6 for 4 against Texas, 5 for 4 against the Mets, 9-5 against San Diego. He did 6 for 1 against the Angels, and then 5 for 3. So we see Joe Ryan clearly has a pitching advantage in the last 6 games. When you mix that with Minnesota having the batting advantage and the odds being Minnesota on the money line, that's what I'm going to take. I'm going to take Minnesota on the money line. We're not going to take a total. We're not going to take anything else. It's Minnesota money line. Move on to the next one. Next up, Washington, San Diego. Neither team's on a streak right now. Gore, 6-6 with a 3.60 ERA against Mazur, 0-2 with a 7.27. Nerfy is almost 70%, but I don't know if I can do it with this pitchers. Looking at the odds, we see that it is basically a pick 'em, and the total is 7.5. Looking at the bats, we see they're about the same team. They're both getting 5 runs in their last 3 games for 10th, 6 versus 7 in their last game, 243 versus 263 in their batting averages. They're almost the same. They're right next to each other. So there's no advantage at all when it comes to batting. Looking over it, and in strikeouts, 8 versus 5.3. San Diego is always going to be San Diego, top 3 or 4 in strikeouts consistently over time because they're more disciplined than other teams. Pitching, Mazur's going out there. He's only pitched 4 games. He had a rough game against Arizona, yes. He did 6 innings, 2-1 against Angels, 3-2 against the Mets, and 5 for 3 against Milwaukee. These aren't bad numbers. It's just this number has inflated his stats for the season. So we need to see more if he's going to be more consistently around the 2-3 range or if he's going to get rocked again. Gore, on the other hand, he gave up 10 hits to Arizona with 4 earned runs. The other side of that, for 2 good games, and then the Mets got him for that. So we got 2 pitchers. We don't know what we're going to get. They're both roller coasters at best. So that makes them pretty much equal in my mind, even though I believe Gore is a better pitcher in the long run. Right now, they're roller coastering, so it's hard to tell. We have two teams that we can't really pick a side in bets. So to me, this entire game's a pass. I'm moving on to the next one. And lastly, we have the Cubs and the Giants. Cubs 2-game losing streak. Giants won the game yesterday where everybody wearing 24 in the walk-off fashion. That's how you're supposed to win when you're doing something like that. So today we have Hendricks with a 1-4 with a 7.46 ERA going up against we don't know because they still haven't announced who's pitching. Second day in a row the Giants are doing this. It's making it really hard to cap their games. 62.7 Nervy. We don't know because we don't know who's pitching, but I will show you some odds because there are odds out there. We do have the Cubs as a slight favorite, and we have 7.5 and 8s out there, so they're able to put odds out, but we don't know who's pitching. So, looking at the bats, we see that the Cubs have a slight advantage, not much of one, 4.7 versus 4 on the runs in the last three, 252 versus 216 on the bats in the last three, slight advantage Cubs, but they are striking out a lot, 11.3 for 28 and 8.3 for San Fran. So San Fran has the advantage in strikeouts. Cubs have a slight advantage on the offense. Pitching, I will show the one I can. Hendricks, 7.46 with a 1.58. You look at that and like, okay, he gives up a lot of runs. Where are the runs? June has been a great month for him. He has gotten this ERA down because, yeah, he only pitched 3, 1, 4, 5, but he is doing great in the games he comes in June. You got to go back here to that 8-7 debacle and the couple 7s in a row back in there. That's where his ERA comes from. This shows you can't just look at a season ERA and be like, ooh, that dude's garbage. Let's look at how he's done lately. Lately, dude's been pitching gems out there like he's a diamond. Might as well call him Jared because he's just handing out jewels to everybody. So yeah, great game. I can't show San Fran because I don't have it. So if I don't have it, I can show you stats and I can show you odds, but if I don't know who is actually going to be the pitcher on both sides, I can't play it. So this game is a pass for me. All right, that's it. All 15 games broken down. I rambled a bit at the beginning, but with all the new people joining, I figured they should understand where we're coming from because most places, all they do is give out picks. I want to make sure we set aside and we do something different because we're trying to grow people and become better bettors, not just get picks and end up losing money in the long run here. So here's a recap for the day because I know people like recaps too. So I played a lot of plays today. I'm kind of impressed. So we're taking Cleveland on the money line. Then we're going to go with Philly on the money line. Over 7.5 in the Seattle-Tampa Bay game, over 8.5 in the Toronto-Boston game. We're going to pass on Pittsburgh and Cincy. We're going to pass on the Subway Series with Mets and Yankees. We're taking the Nerfy in Atlanta-St. Louis. We're going to pass on Dodgers-White Sox. We're going to take the Houston run line and the money line, even though a profit's profit. We're going to take it. We're going to take the Nerfy in Miami-KC, the over in Texas-Milwaukee of 8.5. Oakland, LA, I got a 3 better there. We got the Nerfy, Angels money line, and the under of 8.5. And then Minnesota money line over Arizona. Washington, San Diego is a pass. Chicago, San Fran is a pass. Even if San Fran announces a pitcher, the way everything's lined up, I'm going to pass on that one. The stats are just too close. And so that one's going to be a pass. So those are all the games. Drop in the comments who you're taking today. Again, I want to see who you're taking because there might be some plays I want to tail. So other than that, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know give me some thoughts, give me some opinions. I like it all. And again, appreciate you being here and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.